I heard you need to build a bomb. You've come to the right man. I'm the Oppenheimer.
So Oppenheimer is directed by Christopher Nolan. This is his latest textbook adaptation. And I gotta say, this thing was pretty bomb. I especially liked how he handled the cameos of this movie. Like, Albert Einstein does not feel like nostalgia bait at all. We all know we love Albert Einstein. I do think it was a missed opportunity not to have him do his signature face in the film, but what can you do? I wasn't expecting at all to see the first iteration of Heisenberg on screen. I thought this was like a cool inclusion of the movie and gave a really good setup for the second version of Heisenberg, you know, the chemistry teacher that would take up the mantle decades later. Like, that was really awesome to see. If I had to give any negatives on the film, I think it was a little woke. Like, I know in some versions of the textbook, they talk about how Oppenheimer is a communist or maybe he's part of the left party, and that was a big part of the film. And I'm like, I came here to be entertained by the idea of someone building a bomb that killed thousands of people. Why are you bringing politics into this? Like, everything has to be woke now? There's also no post-credit scene about World War III. Kind of a bummer. Other than that, though, way better than Barbie. All joking aside, though, let's talk about Oppenheimer. But with Oppenheimer, we see Christopher Nolan tackle a biopic like no one has before in telling the story of Robert Oppenheimer following his journey from a simple physicist to becoming the father of the atomic bomb. And that's all pretty much. I'll give any spoilers to you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review, although it's history, right? But most of us weren't listening during history class, so we didn't even get spoiled. But oh my goodness here. Okay, starting off, I want to get one thing straight. I was never that interested in a biopic about Oppenheimer. I remember being intrigued in school when talking about like the Manhattan Project, and I've seen a few documentaries about it, but I never really like wanted to dive in so deeply into someone like Robert Oppenheimer. I was just like, okay, created the bomb. What more could there be to that story? But then you tell me Christopher Nolan is wanting to direct it, and he cast some of the biggest stars in Hollywood to be part of it. You have my attention. You're gonna have my butt in that theater. So having now actually seen this 3-hour epic, Christopher Nolan has changed the game for how to approach a biopic. While I'm not ready to say this is like my personal favorite Christopher Nolan movie, I'm not gonna argue with the people that bring up this is probably him at his best. Well, I totally understand there's gonna be people who aren't interested in the story about Oppenheimer, the Manhattan Project, or even have the patience to sit through a dialogue-heavy 3-hour epic. I do highly encourage it's a movie that everyone should at least check out once, because the way Christopher Nolan handles telling this biopic, it's a mixture of a biopic and a documentary all at the same time. The reason I say this is Christopher Nolan at his best is because he is using all the tools that a filmmaker has at his disposal to completely heighten up the story. Although this movie is mainly just people sitting down and recanting events from history, it is told in such a thrilling, adrenaline-rushed way. And all of that is because of the tools Christopher Nolan used, from editing to the score that really enhances a couple of scenes done by Ludwig Göransson, hopefully I pronounced that right. Paired up with the movement of the camera and performances of the actor, Christopher Nolan takes a little bit of liberties a few times in this movie of things that aren't completely grounded in reality. A few things I never really thought I would see pop up in a Christopher Nolan movie, but it's all done in enhancing the story. And coming off as someone who had very little interest in finding out more about this particular subject, I was glued. Because the movie really isn't about the creation of the bomb as much as it is a character study on Oppenheimer, such a complex person that is very morally gray in our history. And I think without a doubt, Cillian Murphy is for sure going to get nominated for an Oscar here, because his performance adds to that haunting factor, because that's an aspect of the film I really wasn't expecting to see. I walked away kind of scared of the world we live in now after watching Oppenheimer. It paints almost like a nasty picture of our future, and it could all be brought back to this exact movie and the moments in history. It'd be crazy of me to go listing off all the different actors involved in this movie, because there are so many of them, some that only are in there for like 2 or 3 scenes, and you're like, that's a giant actor to be used for such a tiny piece of the movie. But standouts, of course, include Florence Pugh, along with Emily Blunt. I did not know a portion of the movie was going to be dedicated to tell me how much of a Riz master Oppenheimer was. Boy built a bomb and was the bomb. But even though I'm kind of joking about that, that was something that was like boggling my mind as the film was going on, because this is a 3-hour movie and it's like everything is showing in here better be important. And when those scenes were happening, looking into Oppenheimer's personal love relationships and this and that, you feel almost like, why are we spending time with that but the craft, the patience you have to take with Christopher Nolan for all of that to come back into play towards the later half of the movie. How some minuscule details mentioned early on become really big metaphoric things thrown at your face. I thought again just goes to show the brilliance Christopher Nolan has in here, because Emily Blunt for a large part of the movie is in the shadow, and then when it's her time for her character to be an integral part of this story, wow, did she stand out. And there are so many little moments like that throughout the movie. Like I joked at the beginning of my video, the Albert Einstein cameo. Albert Einstein was like used really well in this movie, sprinkled throughout from beginning, middle, and end. And that's just something I wasn't expecting to have happen. Same as Robert Downey Jr., which I think not knowing a lot of the history and where the roles of these characters played in time will really enhance your enjoyment of this film, because this is some outstanding work from Robert Downey Jr. in here. And the way Christopher Nolan handles unraveling the layers of his character and where he falls in the Oppenheimer story led to what I felt was like a really exhilarating third act of the movie, where all these little puzzle pieces were finally falling into place, and things I found confusing or not completely following, because hey, it's a movie with thousands of names, thousands of situations, jumping in and out of timelines from early on to the future to the present, and that's what led to me feeling a bit of a drag in the second act. But let me tell you, there was a point when the third act begins where it all just starts really coming into place, and you're just seeing what Christopher Nolan crafted in here. And you would think like one of the biggest parts about this movie would be the whole bomb sequence, right? Or all the moments in this film where they're testing the actual bomb. And while those moments are very suspense-filled, a lot thanks to the score of the movie and the pacing of the film, to me, there are scenes outside of the bomb sequences where people are literally just going back and forth talking to each other that end up becoming way more suspense-filled, way more thrilling to watch. And that's just, again, a big thanks to the way Christopher Nolan decided to tackle this story in making it less about the bomb and more of a character study on Oppenheimer himself. So yeah, I completely understanding not everyone's gonna love this or have the patience to sit down and watch this. It really felt to me like the people who will come out truly appreciating Oppenheimer are gonna be film fanatics that look at all these different things that come together to make a movie, from the score, the acting, cinematography, camera work. And for someone who's not looking and appreciating all these tools coming together in harmony, they're just gonna come out walking out saying, that's kind of boring. So with Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, I'm going to give action 2.5 stars. Like I said, majority of this movie is just people sitting down having a discussion. Christopher Nolan makes it work in a way where if you're paying attention and are interested in the things being said, you are going to be glued. You're going to be adrenaline rushed. And if not, there's still a couple of bomb sequences in there that I thought were nicely handled. Commenting the movie, I'm going to give it 1 star. This isn't a particularly funny film. There's not a lot of jokes going about. You'll have a quip here and there, but for the most part, everything is taken super seriously, which should be taken seriously. Drama in the film, I'm gonna give it 5 stars. The insane work Christopher Nolan had to do as the writer of the film in juggling all these different characters, wanting to jump back and forth from different time periods, explain the creation of the bomb, then give us a deeper insight into Oppenheimer in his inner thinkings, I think is a task very little people in this world could have done themselves. Horror in the film, I'm actually gonna give it 2.5 stars. I don't know if anybody else felt this, but when the movie was over and the kind of gut punch they give you to the reality of our world, I walked away a little scared now. This movie does not shy away from the dread and haunting nature from what was created and how this could eventually affect us down the line as a society. Suspense in the movie, I'm going to give 3.5 stars. Now, there is going to be a lot of sequences sprinkled throughout the movie that you are going to be adrenaline rushed, feeling on the edge of your seat, but it is still a 3-hour film, and although it is paced very well, there are some moments that I think drag and hold back your suspense. Casual movie fans watching Oppenheimer, I'm going to give it a C+. There's just not going to be a lot of casual moviegoers that have the patience and complete appreciation for what Christopher Nolan is doing here on a technical filmmaking level. Cinephiles, I'm going to give it a B+, and critically, I'm going to give it an A+. For Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, gearing this towards the film fan, the cinema connoisseur, I think it deserves the 3C guarantee. But again, though, know yourself. Know where you stand. There's nothing wrong with not being interested or all that excited about a movie like Oppenheimer. I don't blame you. My girlfriend fell asleep halfway into the movie. We all have our different tastes, but I think if you are a film fanatic, this is a movie you need to see at least once to notice a lot of these nuances Christopher Nolan throws into filmmaking. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Were you anybody else like me that dragged somebody out to see Oppenheimer where you loved it and the person next to you was just not having the best time? Anything, everything, be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm the Oppenheimer.